So tonight we're out here in the cook shack and we're going to process some chicory root. And we got a handful of root. We're just going to clean that up. We're going to get it in the smoker here. Chicory is 68% inulin, a prebiotic fiber that improves gut health, aids in weight loss, and perhaps even lowers sugar and helps regulate sugar. There are numerous claimed health benefits to consuming chicory, aside from being just a fantastic coffee substitute. So we're going to give it a try just as that, a coffee substitute. So to do that, we need to get this to the state that we can actually utilize it in place of or with our coffee. Obviously, the first thing we want to do with our roots is make sure they're good and clean. So we've brushed off all of the loose dirt, and I'm just going to give it a rinse. And make sure that we've got any of the loose dirt removed. We're going to rinse these real thoroughly until there's no more dirt left on them. And then we're going to go to the next level. So all we want to do is reduce this chicory to small pieces so it's easy to roast. One of the easiest ways is one of these simple cutters. And you can just start chopping that down and it cuts relatively easily. As a matter of fact, if it's overly fibrous and woody, the plant's probably a little too far gone. And so we want to expose as much of the fiber as we can in this process. So another great way to do this is just to use a good sharp knife. And if you're finding it difficult to cut, that just means that your knife isn't sharp enough. So as you can see, we've cut it down to fairly small pieces, and we want that. We want them to be about equal in size. We're going to throw this into an oven at about 200, 225 degrees for 2.5 hours just to dehydrate. Then we're going to crank that up to 300 to 350 degrees and let this roast. I have the luxury of a cook and hold oven, so we're just going to throw that in there, let it adjust itself, and we'll come back in a few hours and see how that's turned out. Obviously, you can process your chicory root with just a good sturdy knife and a pot or a pan over a campfire, and we'll certainly take a look at that process and just how simple that can be as well. But ultimately, we want a fine grind. So in this case, we started with a traditional coffee grinder, an electric coffee grinder, and ground that fine. If storing chicory long term, I'll take those cut pieces and roast them, and then just give them a couple of quick bursts in the grinder so that they're coarse. This here is actually a little too fine, but a coarse grind is great for long-term storage, and then roast it on the fire. So there's just very little more satisfying than knowing that you've harvested resources from the forest around you and that you have the resources to make the best use of those. So I've simply roasted my chicory in my iron ladle, and we're just going to grind that fine using a stone mortar and pestle. And we really do want this kind of fine because under the circumstances, and it smells so rich already, we're going to be brewing this in a pour over type of brew, and we're going to let it steep for a little bit, but that pour over is where most of the oils are going to be removed from the chicory. It's just so satisfying if you're out camping, if you can harvest some resources such as chicory, and you can chop and process that, carry some of it with you in a long time survival situation. It just gives you the advantage of knowing that you do have the skills to do this. And so I just like to practice it. In this case, I'm taking that coarsely cut chicory and ground chicory. I've ground it finer and roasted it over an open fire. And I'm just brewing it with some boiling water. And I'm doing it in this clear container because I want you to see just immediately how much oil we're actually pulling from the chicory. And so this infuser really allows me to do that and demonstrate that for you. There's just nothing much more beautiful. And the aroma, this really does smell like a fantastic coffee. And I think if you tried the chicory, you'd be very satisfied with it. So we've started with some chicory that was already cut pretty fine and ground to a coarse texture. I did not pre-roast my chicory because the oils remain fresher and it yields a better flavor and it holds longer. So I'm going to pour myself just a little bit of this. But before I do, just want you to take a close-up look at that. Look at just how dark that is. And so that's just a beautiful brew. So you could obviously complete the process from dehydration to roasting, fine grinding, and just packing this with you and carrying it. But there's something satisfying about grinding it right there at the campfire. And look at this brew. Another favorite way to brew my chicory is to use a French press. And so I'm just putting that now, the electrically ground that we showed you earlier into a French press. We're pouring boiling water over that. We're going to let that steep for just a minute or two, and then we're going to press that. Now, both approaches produce a great coffee flavor, and you get all the benefits of that chicory. I had a lot of fun sharing this with my friends. So we have guests trying our hickory coffee. JD, what's your take?
If I didn't have coffee, I would drink it.
That would suffice.
Yep.
And do you think it would complement coffee if it was added to it?
I don't know. We ought to try that.
I'm thinking for the health benefits, maybe.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Prince, what do you think?
I find it to be very earthy taste, kind of a floral earthy taste. It has a good flavor, good body. I would say it would be a nice enhancement to ground coffee.
So there you have it. Chicory makes an excellent coffee substitute. It's an enhancement to your coffee. It's fantastic for gut health, reduces blood sugar. The flowers can be eaten, the leaves can be eaten, the entire plant is safely edible. It can be added to your diet in a survival situation simply for its density. It's a carbohydrate and loaded with some additional benefits. So you definitely have the vitamin C there, and you've got some other vitamins going on, and of course the fiber. Take a moment to click that bell and the subscribe button, and thank you for watching.